Before the arenas, before the awards.
This is b4Nashville Live. Have a question for our guest?
Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
Hey, everybody. We are back again with another edition of Before Nashville. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. And I've got a young lady. She was born and raised in Massachusetts. And now she is kind of making her way back and forth between there and Nashville. And we're going to talk to her coming up in about 30 seconds. So just hang on.
Before Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Sibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at sibbysapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. ThreeRangers.com.
All right, it's another Monday night edition of Before Nashville, and tonight I have a young lady from Massachusetts who is joining me. I think I said that. Sometimes I say Massachusetts wrong because I get in a rush. But she also, we found out in talking earlier that we have a little bit of commonality, and she used to spend her summers in the Ozark. So just put your hands together and welcome Ashley Jordan. Ashley, how you doing?
George, can you see me?
I can see you now.
Okay, can you hear me? Just making sure.
Technology is such a wonderful thing, but boy, it sure messes you up when you're trying to get stuff right.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm just glad I'm in the right place. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. I actually found Ashley through social media and reached out to her, and she was so kind to say, sure, I'd love to come on, and we got things coordinated. And so here she is. And I've been listening to her music the past couple of days to just kind of get a feel for her. And I'll touch on my takes here in just a little bit about that. None of them are bad, so I don't want you to think that. I'll just touch on a little bit later on. But tell me a little bit about growing up in on the East Coast. Not a big country music scene out there, but it started to grow over the past few years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of my influences, I think, from not only my mom and growing up in the Ozarks and Missouri area, but my grandfather on my dad's side was a country singer. He was like a country singer songwriter, and he kind of had a Johnny Cash kind of sound, which I was always just completely enthralled by. And it's one of those really cool things that I think it's just, it just really, it set in with me that was just the kind of music that I love to listen to. My parents were like so into music, right? They just like every weekend were at a concert or listening to music. And so I had all of these like songs in my head just all the time, anywhere from like the singer-songwriter kind of folk side to like the country kind of bluegrass kind of side. So I think that's why I really just gravitated towards that, is watching my grandfather sing and play and the harmonica, and just like really hearing and growing up with it. It was so kind of ingrained. And so I kind of naturally led in that direction with it, and it's definitely, the times are changing. I think a lot more people are starting to understand and get country music now, that there is some crossovers and different types within the genre, so it's been nice. Yeah. It's been very nice.
Absolutely. Now, growing up, I mean, you talked about getting into country music through your grandparents and your mom and the Ozarks and stuff. Who were some of the people that you were listening to and looking up to when you were younger, and even getting more into figuring out what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I think that growing up, at least in our house, I heard a lot of Jewel. I was obsessed with Jewel, Dolly, Alison Krauss, oh my gosh, Garth Brooks. I'm trying to think of all the ones, John Denver, Willie Nelson, Tammy Wynette. Like there were so many different kinds of music. And so I just really heard a lot of that kind of singer-songwriter, folk, country kind of music. And I think I kind of led myself, it just I naturally wanted to go in that direction. And, I wrote so much as a kid. I was a very creative person. And I realized that over time, all of those things that I was writing were really just songs without a place to go. Once I learned an instrument, then it was like an aha moment. Like all of this stuff is really music, and it kind of started out as kind of singer songwriter, kind of folky. And then it really just kind of naturally went to country because that's where my voice and, people say I have kind of a yodel type of thing that goes on. And just this voice that comes out that just kind of lends itself to that type of storytelling and music. And so yeah, I mean, I have so many different inspirations that I draw from, but definitely the ones growing up were ones that stuck with me for sure. That type of storytelling,
Right. Do you remember the first song that you ever wrote growing up?
Oh man, I think I do. So when I was, oh gosh, maybe 13 or 14, I had done a competition. And it was like, I can't even think of what it was for. It was like AMTC. It was like acting, modeling, singing, like that kind of thing. And I wrote a song called Caught in Between, talking about kind of like growing up and, just the different things that you're going through, trying to figure out who you are. And
Right.
I sang that for a competition. And I remember just being like, whoa, like this is so cool to, get, that was kind of like that first original song kind of experience. And then from there, I came out with my first record when I was about 15. And it was all like, just all these songs. I had all these songs and I'm like, what do I do with them? So it was almost like that diary, like opening up that diary and just kind of putting it out there, which was really vulnerable, but it's also very kind of cathartic and like healing in a way. So it was very cool. It helped me kind of discover myself a little bit.
So have you ever gone back to that song and thought maybe I could redo this and kind of shift some things around and make it relevant to now and see what it would do?
That's an interesting thought. There's been a couple off of maybe I think my second album, Liquid Words, where I was like, oh, there's a couple of these that I feel like I would want to take and do like a little bit differently, or just even songs that I was like would write and I'm like, yeah, that's not any good. And then I go back in my voice memos, like scrolling. This is why I have all my technology problems. It's like 35,982. And I'm like, this is why my phone doesn't work. It all makes sense now. I like scroll back like 2011, 2010. I'm like, ooh. Just I never get anything done. Like, I'm just like, ooh, I like that, So yeah, it's always just like my brain is always going to the songs and the music. I think that's where I really like to be, is the songwriting aspect of things. Is just I get all amped up about that.
Right.
As you can
Well,
see.
and it's funny because you talk about the voice memos. They're kind of like, the old depiction of the devil on one shoulder and the angel on the other, because you got, the good side of it is you have a way to put your thoughts down that could be everlasting as long as something doesn't happen and they're all erased. But on the same side, there's 38,000 of them and I got to figure out which way to go.
Terrifying. Yeah. And what's even worse as time goes on, even if you labeled them, the labels aren't there anymore. So I'm sitting there listening and I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah. I'm like going through all of these and I'm like, look at the time. I'm like, oh, what was I doing? I can't remember what I started to do, but I'm here. I'm in it now,
Right.
I get
It's
lost
that one rabbit hole that you go down that you're like, oh my gosh, why did I do this?
do it all the time with so many things. And I'm like, geez.
Right.
Yeah, I get lost in the creative side of things a lot, which is good. It's good and it's bad sometimes,
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Now, when did you start learning to play? Because you play guitar. Do you play any other instruments?
So I kind of all in that realm. I do ukulele, I do harmonica, electric. I have some of my like 12 strings and different things like that. Definitely all similar. But that's where I really like to be. There's something about the the strings for me, I guess. Who knows? But yeah, it's God, I have a guitar acquisition problem. You don't see all of them right now, but So I have, like, literally like 35 of them all in different locations. And everyone's like, how come every time I see you, you have a different one? I'm just like, I'm like,
I never tell.
problem.
Right.
I
Some,
help it.
some women have a problem with shoes. You have a problem with guitars. I mean, it is what it is.
Yep, it is what it is. Exactly. Yep. I got to work on
So,
that a little bit,
nah. Hey,
Yep.
the bright side of that is that some guitars you buy can someday be worth something and a little more valuable. And a lot of them are valuable in more than just monetary ways, but your shoes are never going to get more valuable. You're always going to wind up throwing them away.
That's definitely true. Yep. Yep. I
So,
would say that's very accurate. That's why I convince myself of those things as I buy another one. Yeah.
right. The guitar is an investment. There we go. We look at it that way.
Yes. Thank you, George. I'm going to write that down. Everyone, to hear that quote?
Exactly. I got this from a guy on a podcast, and I'm never going to forget it. A guitar is an investment. Uh,
Write it right up there on the wall over there, somewhere over there,
exactly. Hey, it's better than Bitcoin. It's not going to go away.
Exactly. My thoughts exactly.
Uh, but how old were you when you started getting into that? I mean, you were young when you started playing.
Oh yeah, I think I got my first like guitar when I was 10 and kind of messed around with it a little bit, took it more seriously when I was like 11 and 12 because I really started kind of like performing there. I had always taken like formal vocal lessons since I was like 7 up until the time like maybe like 10 years. And but then I was like I wanted to develop more with the guitar. I was good, but I was like I feel like I can take this further. And I met an incredible artist by the name of John Gerard. And I think I was like at an open mic and he was like the featured artist, right?
Mm.
And this guy gets up there and, you try to not judge people, by their immediate look, but he's one of those guys where he looks so tough, right? Like he's got completely shaved head and all the earrings and the tat sleeves and like tats up here and on his fingers. And we're like, whoa, like I'm like, what is this guy doing with an acoustic guitar for one? Like I'm waiting for him to get up with a full like rock band or death metal, you know what I mean? And he gets up and he's singing like this, I can't even describe, like almost like Damien Rice, like beautiful, like emotional music. And he was just captivating. Like you couldn't look away, it's just him and this beat up guitar. Looks like he kind of piecemealed it back together because he beats the crap out of it, right? And I talked to him after and I was like, I'm like 13, 14 years old, just walking up to this like terrifying guy, right? I'm like, oh. And I was like, will you like be my mentor? Like, will you I want to play like you. Will you teach me to like sing and play and write like that? And he was like, sure. Yeah. So my parents were just like, I was like, look, that's my new guitar teacher. And they both look at each other and they're like, they're like, what have you done? Like, what the heck, Ashley? And I was like, no, this is going to be good. This is good. Right. And he was a street performer. He had literally been homeless for a time and got up off his feet and was able to take care of himself by street performing. He became this like renowned performer in the New England, Boston area. Like he was incredible. And he just, like he's not one of those teachers where he's like, oh, he's going to be, you're going to play it like this and it looks like this. And I can't tell you the name of that chord, but this is how you're going to do it. And that turned out to be a great thing for me because he really helped me get off my feet with my music and songwriting and performance. And I'm so lucky and blessed to have had someone like him in my life. From there, I did street performing. I played in the subways. I played in downtown Boston because if you were shy, it knocks the shy right out of you because people are coming up and taking pictures of you and, sirens, people driving by, people asking you questions. It's like it really helps you kind of have to put up the blinders while you're performing. And it really taught me a lot and everything that I wanted to do. I wanted to follow like in his footsteps, such an incredible guy. And I'm not sure, I don't think he's really doing music anymore, which was super sad for me, but he is like still watching, popping in every now and then. And but he was really someone who helped me at a very young age, like get to the next point. And he's like, this is my producer. Go work with him to do your first album. Like, you know what I mean? It was like
Right.
there's a me, and I want to make sure that I do that too in my career, is be that kind of person for someone who's like an up and coming. Cause I was like, he changed my life. Like, who does that? Like, you know what I mean? He was just so kind and so like, humble about it. I was like, geez, like, whew. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And especially when you have somebody that's, 13, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in there, and they come up to you and I mean, I'm sure the first thought is, kid, I'm busy,
That's exactly what I thought he was gonna say, which most
Yeah.
teachers would. Yeah, I'm busy. I got stuff to do. I don't have time to teach some kid like this or that. Yeah. So it was like, I was like, whoa. Like for the longest time, I was so starstruck by him because I was just like, what, who, you know what I mean? He's just one of those people. He just blew everyone out of the water, like just with so much intensity and passion when he performed. And he always said to me, he was like, anytime, he'd come to my performances and he's like, what's going to set you apart? And I was like, what? He's like, every time you get on that stage, you're going to play like that's the last time you ever get to do that in your whole life. That's the last time. And I was like, oh, so now like every time that I go and do these like big performances, I always think of him saying that. And he's so right. He's so right. Like be in the moment. That might, who knows, right? That could be the last time, right? And I'm like, I always get so emotional and I'm like, he's right. He would play like the next day he was gone, and that always like struck me. I was like, whoo, that's heavy.
Right.
But
Right.
that totally makes sense for why he was this incredible, passionate performer. He's like, just that was performing like it was the last time. And I'm like, that's something that always stuck with me.
Absolutely. And that's some of the best advice that anybody can be given. I mean, is, perform that this show like it's could be your very last one because I
Yeah,
mean, we're not guaranteed our time on earth. And so we never know what's going to happen. So it's
exactly.
always better to go out on a high note, as I always say.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I was like, that's always a very, very good way of thinking about it. He's like, I don't care if there is one person in the crowd. I don't care if there's zero. There's still somebody running the sound. You're going to do it and just pretend like it's a full crowd and you're going to do it like that's like the last time. And I was like, man, that really helped me a lot for sure. It gives you perspective.
As long as there's a pair of ears listening that aren't yours or your band's, you're good to go.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
And I think that, like I said, I think that's a very wise thing for a young artist to learn because there's so many people nowadays that they give advice that really isn't good advice, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, so, and I mean, it's just um, I don't want to get off of my soapbox that I usually get on about every show about my feelings with some of the things happening in Nashville, but
Hmm.
um, that is what it is, and people just have to you either accept it or you don't. I mean, I love Nashville. I love the city. I love the music. I love what it stands for. I have a lot of friends in the industry, but there's just some things that just aren't right. And I'll just leave that alone. But
Hmm.
now you got out and you performed on the street. Like you said, you at about 13, you started as a street performer in the Boston area, like down around the Harvard Square.
Yeah. Hmm.
And what was the what was the response that you got from a number of the people? I mean, for like what you were doing at a
Right.
young age.
Yeah, I think that people were very, I mean, there are a lot of people that or some that I would see that would street perform and do all kinds of different things, right? Performances and acrobatics and different things. And I think it would catch people off guard a little bit just because I was so young at the time, and they're like, where are your parents? Like, what? They were always there. But I think that, yeah, people were very, very cool. And like, they'd come and listen and take videos and, throw cash. And in some instances, I'd always laugh because they'd throw like cigarettes in there. And I'm like, not smoking those, man. Got a bad case of asthma and it's not happening anytime.
Right.
Uh, yes, like a pack of cigarettes, like notes, or like asking me to play a certain song for the next time. And it was amazing. It's how I got most of my gigs, is that I'd play outside of these different places, and a legendary place in Cambridge and Harvard Square is Club Passim. And one of the people who had worked there at the time had walked by this guy every time and looked like someone maybe important, I don't know. And I just remember him like throwing in his business card, and it was like written on the back, like, you can come and play inside sometime, like question mark. And I was like, oh my God. And so that's how I got some of my first gigs, was literally at Club Passim, where some of the most amazing people, like legendary singer-songwriters, have played. And so I kind of started doing that. And then one person would be, oh, you should go and play. I'll call this place, you go play inside there. And I was like, okay. So yeah, so it kind of was just like this thing that just kind of started from the street performing, which was crazy. Festivals, coffee houses, openings, like you name it. It was very, very cool. And so I'm never like, when people always be like, oh, that must have been terrible. I'm like, are you kidding? It was a blast. Like, like it was fun. It was great.
Right. I mean, do you feel like that you got, which of the two did you feel like you got the most experience from, the street performing or performing at a young age inside of some of these places you were playing in front of?
That's a good question. I mean, I think they're both very different, because sometimes for street performing, it's just people passing by, but then in some instances, people will stay for a while. So I think that the street performing was great for just like, first of all, playing for long hours. I'd play for like 3 or 4 or 5 hours, like literally in one of my songs, like play until my fingers bled, which was true. We'd come home, and if it was a really like a colder day in the fall, I'd like be bleeding from my nails and from my fingers, like down my hand and stuff. And I'm like, oh, like I didn't even feel it because I didn't want to stop. People are walking by, and you got to just continue the show. And then in some instances, playing inside, it's a whole different thing. You're playing to an audience that's sitting there, and you're storytelling, and it's a little bit different. So every gig you have to kind of like feel out the vibe, like what kind of show is this, what is expected. So I think it was good to kind of have a lot of different experiences to understand like what I should have been doing when I was that age, for sure.
Right. Now, you mentioned some people would come by and they would just put stuff in your guitar case or your tip bucket, and other people would stand around and watch. They have a term for those people that just stand around and watch.
Oh yeah. What's the term?
They call those people tourists.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, people were very generous. I mean, throwing money in there, like I'd make out like a bandit sometimes, which I was like amazed by,
Right.
So it was good. It was a great way to kind of get my feet wet and really learn how to perform my original music, and see how people respond to certain songs or certain anecdotes or stories that I would tell. And I feel like it was a nice kind of trial and error type of situation.
Right.
Death by fire. Like you're just so exposed and vulnerable. I think it was almost a good thing to do, because like now I'm just like, when I perform, there's really nothing that like scares me or throws me off, because I'm just like, there were so many crazy things that would happen. Like I can't even list off all the things. So I think it was a great thing. At the end of the day, it was a great thing.
At that time, you'd already been through it all. I mean, pretty much. So
Totally. Oh God. Yeah. Some very weird things, funny things, bizarre things. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, get that zone tunnel vision thing going, right into the music.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So if you could have dinner, you're talking about some of your influences and, listening to John Denver, Johnny Cash, and Tammy Wynette and stuff like that. If there was one artist that has passed away that you could sit down and have dinner with, who would that artist be?
Oh man, that's a tough one. So one that has passed.
Yes.
Hmm. Oh man, I think I'd have to say Johnny Cash because there's so many stories that I would want to. There's so many
Uh-huh.
questions I feel like I would have for him. Yeah, he seemed like a very interesting, very like deep fellow, and such a talented person all around. Like I think that would be pretty ideal.
Right.
hmm
What would you said there would be so many questions, but what would your first question to him be?
Oh, I think I would ask him, maybe not even something super musical like geared, but just like, does he have any like regrets? Like what's something that he regrets, or does he regret anything? Like I feel like if I'd want to ask songwriters like more like just deep questions about their life and things like that, I feel like that would be a cool, interesting question.
Yeah, and that's a very good it's a different answer than what I've heard before, and I'd never thought of that. Um, I try to outthink the people I'm talking to sometimes, and it's better just to let them answer the question.
I hear you. I hear
Uh,
you. Yeah, I think I would just be interested to hear what his response would be.
right. Now, as a songwriter, as well as a singer, but we're just focusing, I just want to focus on songwriting for a second.
Mhm.
What is one song that you have thought to yourself, man, why did I not write that song?
Oh gosh, I feel like I've said that so many times. There's been at least a few where I'm just like, "Oh, that's a great one." Right now, I really, really love, it's called Just Like That, by Bonnie Raitt, and
Mhm.
I think that one hit me real hard. She performed it on one of the award shows. I can't remember which one recently, and, I thought like literally every time I've listened to that, I'm just like, man, first of all, what an emotional story. And
Mhm.
the way that she communicates the story and tells it with her voice, you hear it in her voice. And I think that's such a just amazing thing when an artist can communicate that kind of story for one and make it through the song, but then also just really make you feel it every single time that you listen to it. I hear a different thing in her voice, or the way that she says the lines in there, is just incredible. So I'd recommend anyone to everyone to listen to that song because it's something very special. I love that
Yeah.
song.
That you're talking about one of the award shows, and I'm trying to think, wasn't she on one of the country music award shows not long ago? And I want to say her and Ashley McBride performed something together, or maybe I'm just wishful thinking.
Yeah, I think she was, and I'm pretty sure she did this song like like pretty acoustic, like live on one of the shows. And I immediately after seeing that, like looked the song up. I'm like, where can I get this song? Because, but I think that's definitely one that I just the emotion in it, and the storytelling in it. I'm just like, it's pretty amazing that she was able to pull that one off.
Right. Well, and with your trifecta of talents, being an instrumentalist, being a songwriter, being a singer, which of the three do you feel like is the most important for you yourself?
Mhm. That's a really good question. I think to me they're all important for sure. I think the songwriting piece is super important, because the songs are so important to me. And I think yeah, so probably the songwriting and performance. I mean, performance is so important as well. And I think that was something that really struck me, at least when I'm listening to artists. Like for instance, when I had seen the guy John Gerard, and for me it was like, yeah, it wasn't just his songs, it was the performance, it was the emotion, it was the storytelling, it was just kind of all of it together. And so I try, and I'm sure, and I know every artist probably would say this too, is that we all try to, you know, make sure that every single one of those things are melding together and happening. You know, at least we all hope that that would happen. But I think, you know, songwriting, the creativity, the stories, making sure that it's authentic and real and true to who you are is so important. I'd say the other ones are very much up there as well, because I love the performance side of things as well, and what I'm doing on guitar and what the vocals are saying, you know, how they are ringing out and sounding is super important too.
Right. Um, Now, when you're writing music, I did read an article where you were talking about your style of writing a particular song was a little different than most of the other songs you had written.
Hmm.
Do you have the, and I'm going to call it this because this is what I've heard it called. It may not be exactly the same verbiage. Do you use the Nashville formula for writing a song, or do you have your own way of writing a song?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that I write in a lot of different ways. So sometimes, you know, it'll just be like a hook that I've come up with, or I've kind of formulated. And I'm kind of saying, okay, I want to like write a song that is this idea with that hook. And then the lyrics kind of come, or the melody comes, and then I put the lyrics with it. Um, and sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes I'll write a full song that has absolutely no melody idea, and it's just a story, and it just comes out, and I will get it all down on paper, and then kind of think about the melody and what's going to kind of come with those words and how they're all going to sound together. And then, like I said, and then sometimes sometimes it's just the melody that I'm somewhere, usually when we're traveling, and I've got my phone and I'm like humming something into my phone, and people are just like giving me crazy looks. So I'm like, I don't want to forget this one. Hang on. So sometimes I'll do that, or I'll talk into my phone, like different words that I don't want to forget. And so, yeah, it happens differently when I do write or co-write with other people. Everyone has like their own interesting way. So sometimes I like doing that, because I like to get into other people's brains and like, how do you do this? And when do you do this? Because I'm like, I cannot write in the morning. That's for sure. I've never written a good song in the morning. I'm like, no, I'm not a morning person. I'm like a 2:30, 3:30, 4 a.m., midnight. Like, that's my time.
Uh-huh.
I've done some writing sessions where it's like 11 a.m. And even then I'm just like, like, what were we thinking? Who planned this time? You know, who thought of this? Yeah. So, but yeah, it's always different. And I think sometimes the Nashville formula, if you're very, very creative, can be, it's like you're trying to squeeze all of your emotion and all of your stuff into a very cut and dry formula. It doesn't mean it's not good. It's just different, right? It's different. So I've been okay with trying that format, but it's definitely a very interesting thing that you kind of sink your hooks into a little bit to understand it before you just jump into it, you know?
Right, right. And I think a lot of people that are outside of Nashville, whenever they start writing, they don't know what that formula is. I mean, it's like if you go to and I might be wrong in this, and I have some friends that attended Belmont, and so they may correct me. But I figure if you're in like a songwriting class in Belmont, they tell you it's kind of like um, you do it this way, kind of like diagramming a sentence. You do this part of it first, and I don't remember how to diagram, and quite honestly, I sucked at it in school, so I'm not going to try to act like I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But you look at like the subject of the sentence, and then you look at the verbs and the adjectives, and then you start putting everything on the diagram. And from what I understand, it's kind of like that. There's a certain you come in with maybe a line or a hook, and then they write some more from there, and then they start working on the melody of the song, and things like that. um and again, like I said, I don't know exactly how the formula is. If I'm going to ask that question again, I probably need to get a hold of some of my friends that are songwriters and say, okay, what's the Nashville formula? Just tell me how you do it.
Yeah. I mean Nashville, it's like they're like song machines, they're just turning out these hits, turning out these songs. And it's definitely, it's cool to see. It's cool to work with people who do that type of thing. And you can tell though that at least some of the songwriters that I've worked in, they're not completely hooked in it. Like they like to kind of do a little bit of both and maybe kind of mix the two. I think that it's changing. I think that it's not always the tight, intense formula that everyone's thinking it is. I think there's some wiggle room nowadays, now that the genres are kind of blending, especially for country music. There's so many different things you can do. And I try to never just fully fit myself into it. If I need to or have to, I definitely will, but I never sit down thinking like, I'm going to make it like this formula, or else I just probably would never do it. Probably just avoid that at all costs. Yeah, it's gotta be like
the system. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Forget that. Yeah.
I'm not going to follow their rules. We're going to throw them away. I'm just going to write it the way I want to.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so speaking of that, we've got a single from you that I want to play real quick and let people listen to. And it's a very interesting song. And I have to admit, I'm going to make myself look good here before I say anything wrong. So hang on just a second and let me look something up. Let's see here. I'm just listening to it today. Am I Gonna Survive?
Mm-hmm.
Is the title of this song.
Yep.
We'll play it. We'll come back. We'll talk about the song and the musicality of things, if that's a word. If not, you can still use it in Scrabble. So double points for that one.
I think you got it right.
And we'll come back and talk about that, but we'll do that here in 30 seconds.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Sibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at sibbysapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. 3rangers.com.
Did that just happen? Or am I falling apart? It's the middle of the day, but the room has gone dark. Please stop talking. Step away from the door. I can't handle you telling me the truth anymore. And I asked my papa, am I gonna live with this pain forever? Is it gonna hurt real bad when I see the light? Is it gonna kill me? Is it gonna heal me? Is it gonna bring me closer, closer, closer to God? How am I gonna stay with this pain in my heart forever? Love is so fleeting. Life is a scream. I'm waiting and praying to end this dismal dream. I know where to run. just follow my heart. Go home to my roots and make a fresh start. And I asked my papa, am I gonna live with this pain forever? Is it gonna hurt real bad when I see the light? Is it gonna kill me? Is it gonna heal me? Is it gonna bring me closer, closer, closer to God? Papa, am I gonna survive with this pain in my heart forever? Everyone's looking, but nobody sees that I'm falling apart as I drop to my knees. And I ask my papa, am I gonna live with this pain forever? Is it gonna hurt real bad when I see the lights? Is it gonna kill me? Is it gonna heal me? Is it gonna bring me closer, closer, closer to God? Papa, am I gonna survive with this pain in my heart forever? Oh, forever. Oh, forever. Forever.
That's Ashley Jordan and Am I Gonna Survive? Now, your producer on that was that Husky that did that?
Jeff Huskins, yes. I like to call him Husky. Yes.
And he's got quite the background. He's been with Little Texas since 1994, and he got a couple of I think couple of records sold. I don't know, a few. He might have 2 or 3 gold records hanging up on the wall somewhere.
Yes, very, very successful guy, and seems like he's doing some incredible things right now with Dolby Atmos and all that. He's mixing some really incredible artists right now. So it's an honor to get to record with him, especially that tune.
That and as I was listening to the music today, I was listening to that. Let me try that again.
You got froze for a second. Yeah, froze.
Yeah, I think on that that song, and then he also worked on "Still Hear Him Talking." Correct?
He did. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting production on both of those songs.
Mm-hmm.
For a country song. And I know that country's, it's not country like Johnny Cash or even Brad Paisley. We just kind of we kind of gravitate. Country is getting more and more to a younger audience. And so some of the stuff that was in there, when you listen to it, you're thinking, well, that sounds like a pop song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the music, it's very crossover, and sometimes I like having a little bit of that pop modern kind of sound along with like the traditional kind of notes, and it is kind of walking the line in a little bit of a different way. And I'm never opposed to that, because sometimes I like just mixing it up a little bit, and just if the song is kind of lending itself in that way, kind of doing that sometimes is a cool thing, at least as a songwriter, to just kind of see which way you want to take a song. And for that one in particular, Am I Gonna Survive, it talks a lot about going through this really dark time, like a lot of people do sometimes in their lives, whether you've lost somebody or you feel lost, for whatever reason. I think that kind of communicated that message in that way, with having the preacher voice in there and kind of talking to God, but kind of a play on words there. We're talking to my dad, talking to God. I think that's definitely a theme in there, because I'm a very spiritual person, and I do look to those, you know, types of things when I am writing and wanting to communicate that emotion. So it was a very cool experience doing a lot of recording and kind of experimenting with these songs.
I mean, there were some things in there like the swells, which I couldn't quite tell if they were keyboards, or I think a couple of them may have been a symbol that may have been, kind of processed here or there.
Mhm.
I'm not a producer, I'm not an engineer, but I can sometimes pick up on that stuff. But those were really interesting for the song itself. And I was trying, as I was listening to this like over and over and over on the way home today. I mean, I've got it. You've probably gained about 5,000 listens on Spotify since 6 o'clock.
Love it.
Because I was just sitting there listening to it and listening to it, listening to it. And I kept thinking your voice has some nuances of certain female singers that I like.
Mhm.
You mentioned one earlier, which was Joel, and I think that little uptick kind of yodel feel in your voice comes a lot from the Joel type of sound.
Oh, definitely.
Um, and then there's an opera singer that I just fell in love with her music, and her. Let's try that again.
That's okay. You said an opera singer?
Yeah, Sarah Brightman is her name.
Oh, cool. That's very
And
interesting.
have you heard her?
I definitely feel like her last name sounds very familiar, so I'm sure in passing I've heard of her name, but now I'm gonna have to check her out for sure. That's awesome.
She had an album out, and this was several years ago, but it was, and I can't remember the title of the album. It's been that long ago. I
Oh,
had looked it up and bought it, and then I wanted to find it again, but it had like a nautical theme to it. Um,
interesting.
and there was one song on there that really it felt like it was kind of those same nuances in the song. I mean, not, it wasn't exact, and it wasn't like I'm saying you copied the song. It's just some of the same nuances in it. And
Interesting.
it's go check her out. I mean, she's one of my favorite, and I don't, well, she's my only favorite opera singer because I'm not big on opera. Um,
Right.
but she's done a lot of opera, and then she did this one album that was more of a pop, kind of a adult, contemporary maybe album. Um,
Wow, that's cool. How interesting.
yeah, and gosh, I wish I could remember what the name of that album was, but like I said, it had like a nautical theme. Um, but it was just, and there's something about dolphins. Okay, there's something about dolphins in it, so take it for what it's worth.
I love how specific that is. Something about dolphins.
Yeah, there's something about a dolphin. Don't get much country in that.
I love it. No, that's really interesting that you say that. I don't no, I've never been compared to an opera artist before, but that's very intriguing because I'm classically trained. Both of my teachers were opera and are opera singers. And so that's where I did learn my, technique and everything. And I'm so thankful for that background because singers, it's tough, when you're out on the road and you're traveling and you're doing back to back to back to back to back, like you
Right.
get like that fitness of your voice. And the opera singers, they know what's up.
Exactly.
Know what to do, and they know when you are doing it wrong. That's for sure. So I was very grateful my teachers in the past and present. And I would recommend to any singer, I don't care what genre you are, make sure you have a vocal coach that you visit or see every like once a month or every couple of weeks, just to make sure that you're on lockdown with what you're doing, because it's very easy, to just overdo it and be overdoing it from the wrong place and singing from the wrong place. So I'm very thankful for that. So that's very cool. And I completely admire opera singers and the things that they can do. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. So that's very cool.
And I had no idea you were classically trained. I wondered when I heard that. I thought, well, maybe there's, just your tonality, and that's my big word for the day, folks, tonality. And
No, I get it. I totally get it. That's very cool. That's very interesting take. Very.
and so I mean, I just the song, it was like your voice to me. And I say that because I don't speak for everybody. Everybody has their different take on stuff. But to me, as I'm listening, I'm driving down an interstate, okay, when I come home. And it can be quite the dangerous place to drive, as you know,
Oh yeah.
how interstates are. And so it's like soothing. I mean, I'm not, I'm just kind of like cruising along, just enjoying the music, and I'm really focused on your voice and the words of your music and stuff. And I'm just like, that is so cool. I mean, and I kept trying to think there's somebody else you kind of put me in the mind of. And when you said Jewel, I thought that's it. That's exactly who it was. And I couldn't think of it.
That's
So
very cool. I love her. Oh my gosh. She's like, she's amazing. Even to this day, she's so incredible. Like every song that her voice is on, it's just like, oh, it's beautiful.
absolutely. Now, if here's kind of the hypothetical portion of the show where I just asked you a few hypothetical questions.
Okay.
One of them is, if you could collaborate, and maybe it's not so hypothetical, but just hasn't come to fruition yet. If you could collaborate with one artist, who would that be?
Oh, that is a tough question. I think I definitely have a list, but I would say probably Chris Stapleton would be like my number one. And it's hard to say number one because it'd be like Chris Stapleton, Garth Brooks. I'd say that those would be the top of the platform for me. I'm just like in awe of them as artists, as songwriters, as performers, and their voices are just glorious. Like I think that would probably be the top.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of great ones there. I mean, and super awesome guys. If you were to go out on tour with any artist, who would you want to tour with?
Oh man, who would I want to tour with? That's a really good question. I mean, I'd probably say Chris and Garth are on there, but I love a lot of artists.
Doesn't have to just be country either. I'll give you a little leeway on it there, just in case.
So I've always wanted to do, and this is a great artist to look up and hear if people haven't heard of him, but Ellis Paul is amazing. And he's someone I've followed since I was literally like maybe 13, 14. And he's a very well-known folk artist, not just in our area, but kind of all over. And his music is just absolutely captivating. Incredible person, incredible songwriter. I kind of put him in the same category with Garth and Chris, but for kind of folky singer-songwriter kind of music. And I would assume playing shows with him would be a very cool experience. Very cool, whether that was collaborating or opening some of his shows, touring with him. He just seems like a very, very down to earth, person, very creative person. I just think anytime you can get in the room or just be with people with that kind of energy and spark and talent, I think is just an incredible gift to get to do that. So maybe someday. Yeah, definitely.
And kind of turning the tide on that just a little bit, because if you are up to that Kenny Chesney stage in your career where you're, playing Gillette Stadium 4 nights a week or some whatever unrealistic thing that he does.
Right.
You're playing like the big stadiums, and really doing your thing, and you're up there and you're getting ready to go out on tour, and you get to hand pick 2 openers that are going to go before you.
Mhm.
Who would you hand pick for your opening acts for your major tour?
I like that question. I think that's a really unique question. And I think my answer wouldn't be super specific, but I think my answer would be somebody local, because I think that's something that has been tough as an artist. And I'm sure a lot of musicians could speak to this, that there's a lot
Right.
of rules nowadays where like local people end up getting bumped because whatever the label, the management team, they hand select people that are a part of their group, which makes total sense. And they put them before the big artists, and the big artists have to say no to local openers. So I think if I was at that stage, I would say to them, like, please choose a local person, because I would want to give that same opportunity to someone who is also talented and coming up in the ranks, who might not get that opportunity. There's so many tough things where it's pay to play and you have to pay to do this or that or play or open. And I think it's super unfair. So I would say that I would want it to be a local person that's coming up in the ranks and like really like needs that and wants that opportunity. That's what I would say.
Right. And one of the things that you said that really stood out in that statement, because this is something that I know about it, but I've never addressed it. And I
Mhm.
feel like for local acts, it's kind of a, pardon the expression, a BS move,
Mhm.
is that whole pay to play thing. You
Yeah.
know, the
Right.
local artists are out there trying to make their living the same way as the big artists are. So why should they have to, you know, pay in order to be on that bill?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
The big
this.
artists are not going to pay them to be on that bill. Very seldomly will that happen, but
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. It's very competitive for it. And it's understandable that different labels and organizations, they want to hand select a person that they are working with. So everything is all like tight knit, and I get it. But I think if I had that say, I'd be like, please, like, choose a local person who needs this, who like just needs their break, because I know what that feels like. And I would want to support a local person 100%.
yeah, I mean, you've played in front of 40,000 people before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, why should that be nothing against you playing in that, but why should other people not be afforded that same opportunity? I don't know if what the situation was then. I hope that wasn't, I hope I'm not getting into the play to pay thing, or pay to play thing or anything.
Oh no, that was a competition that I won. Actually, it
Oh,
was Mix Fest. It was a radio station, Mix 1041, and they did a big competition where people could send in videos and you could come in and audition. And we did big audition rounds. And the first year didn't get it. Someone else did, which was awesome. Second year didn't get it, which I was super bummed. And then the third year I came back and they brought it from like 100 people to 50 to 20 to, I don't even know, they brought it down to like 5 people, and we all did a big show in I think it was like at like some sort of restaurant, and played in front of some of the big judges there, Crosby, Stills and Nash, like one of the managers from that, and they had brought other judges in, and they brought it down to like 2, and then they chose me that year, which I was really that was amazing to get that opportunity as a local artist. Um,
right.
to get that opportunity. I was like so shocked and so in awe over that opportunity. So that was a very cool thing to get to do.
Awesome. That's great. I didn't know how all that worked out. I'm glad you explained that to me. I just saw that and I thought that's really cool that
Yeah,
you
that was fun. That was a very fun experience. It's like experience like no other, that's for sure.
right. Absolutely. Um so if you could go back to your um 13-year-old self
Mhm.
and you could offer her a piece of advice, which we talked a little bit about that already. If you could offer her a piece of advice about how to navigate the industry, what would that advice be?
Hmm. Well, I think that, it's a very, very tough industry. I think there's a lot of comments always come in from different people about this or that. I think that the thing would be to just have a very, very thick skin and just to not be a people pleaser because you can't. You
Right.
cannot be a people pleaser and be a musician because it's never going to work and you're going to have a lot of anxiety. So you just have to just be yourself and authentically be who you are. And that's just such a big part of it is I think when you're a young artist, you keep getting led in certain directions and you should sound like this, you should look like this, you should play like this, you should you know what I mean? There's so many peanut gallery, like people saying what you need to do, what you shouldn't do, what you shouldn't say, what you shouldn't write. And I think the best thing for just creative freedom and just being exactly who you are. Because at the end of the day, if you're exactly who you are and people don't like it and they don't like the music, that's okay. And I think that's a big thing is that as a young artist, you're so concerned about that. And it makes sense, right? Any normal person, you want to be well thought of and liked, but you can't convince people. You can't like, you just have to just do your thing and keep your eye on what it is that you're doing and not really worry about what people's thoughts, concerns, whatever are about what you're doing and what you're writing. And you just have to stay true to your path. I think that's a big one.
Right. Um, had another question come to my mind I was going to ask.
Mhm.
Um, my 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 brain train sometimes derails, and I think it just happened. Uh,
That's okay.
so, um, but I'm trying to walk through a mental doorway so I can get back to it. They say if you walk through the doorway and back in, it'll come to you.
No worries.
Um, golly. This is a big question for me to ask. Oh, I know what it was now. I knew I'd get there eventually. Um, w- who or yeah, let's give me one artist that you feel like is underrated right now that should have more recognition than what they're getting.
Hmm. An underrated artist. I mean, oof, I think there's a full town of underrated artists in Nashville, for sure. That I think, you know, it, I think that it's just about promotion, and I think the opportunities are a little bit tougher for indie artists. I think that
Right.
there's a bunch. I mean, I have a lot of people that I see and know and have played with, and I'm just like, what the heck? Why aren't you like a major star? But there's so many elements to this business. Like we had kind of talked about before, and like the pay to play kind of stuff. It is a tough industry, and I mean, you could say that for any business. Sometimes that's just how it is. So I think that if I had to think of underrated, I do like a lot of underrated, just like indie artists. I'm sure I have a list of them somewhere. I can't think of any right now off the top of my head, but there's definitely a bunch that I think deserve more recognition for sure.
Right. And I like the way you put that because there are so many in Nashville. And it's like um I was reading something the other day about the downtown area, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and how there are so many folks that are just you go see them if you're in town and you're going exactly like you said. Why are you not signed to a label?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I've seen a great deal of them and just been like, what the heck?
Right.
So,
Right.
mhm.
Now, if somebody wanted to find out more about you
Mhm.
and what's going on in your world, where do they need to go to do that?
Yeah, so people could go to my website. It's ashleyjordanmusic.com, Jordan. And from there you can find all of my social media handles. So Instagram, Ashley J Music, Facebook / Ashley Jordan Music, TikTok, Ashley Jordan Official. Finally got on there. Much convincing that had to happen. I'm like, oh my God, sweet baby Jesus, another site I gotta be on. But it actually is kind of fun. We'll see how long it lasts, but I'm on there. um,
For everybody, as far as that goes.
yeah, so that's where people can find me. My music's on iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, all that good stuff.
I will definitely say go to the DSPs, the digital service providers, and look Ashley up because her music is really good. I mean, I'm a huge fan now. Um, the only complaint I have is there's not about 8 more albums on there to where by the time I get home, I don't have to go. When my wife calls and says, "Why are you sitting in the truck?" I'm listening to Ashley.
Like, what are you doing?
Right. Uh, yeah,
Awesome.
I'm in the middle of this album and I don't want to get off it yet. Hang on, or taking a long way home, and drive 35 miles north out of the way and then have to drive back. Uh,
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, George. That's great.
you're so welcome. And you've got your tour schedule on there as well, which right now you're just mostly up in the Northeast. Now you said you have residence in the Northeast, up in the Boston area, and then you come to Nashville, uh, like maybe one or more times a month. It just depends on what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna be back pretty soon, probably like the end of May through like CMA week.
Okay.
I'm excited for it. So I've got a bunch of shows coming up that I gotta kind of solidify and get them up on the website and everything so people can kind of just stay up to date on the social media sites for posters with the upcoming dates and the website tour dates. But it's gonna be probably a lot more permanent in Nashville soon because the traveling is hard going back and forth. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to being back in the area for CMA Fest.
Now, would this be your first year performing at CMA Fest, or have you done that in the past?
In the past, I had done like a couple performances like during that time. But I think I'm hoping this year it's going to be kind of more intertwined with a lot of the cool like stuff that's going to be going on in association with the festival and stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's awesome. If you've never been to CMA Fest, it is. Uh, I like to get in one spot and just listen. I don't like to move around. There's too many people for me.
It is a lot going on all at once. I'll give you that for sure.
And so if you get the opportunity to go check it out, especially this year, and I can't remember the dates on that. I just got an email the other day. I probably am not going to try to make it down this year because I have as we talked about the charity concert. I think it's right around that same time, so I'm not going to be able to go down there because I have too much to do here, which is unfortunate. Um,
Mhm.
but definitely want to try to get down and looking forward to some of your shows once you get in Nashville full time, or even when you're back there, find out if you're going to be playing around Nashville and maybe just where, you know, it's not that far. So we can just hop over there and check
Definitely.
out some shows.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted for sure.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you can also sign up for her newsletter on the website. So go do that. I'm we'll be doing that after we get off. I didn't get a chance to do it earlier today, but after we get off here, I'll be doing that so that I can find out everything going on as well. Again, go check out her Spotify and her iTunes and all that stuff, and give her a listen. That helps out the artist. And I didn't. Let me see. Do I still have? I do still have the website up here. This is one of the things I always like to push, and I want to make sure it's there. Yes, she does have some merch online that you can order. So go order that as well. That just helps the artist out that much more, because it's something that it's a unique thing to have, depending on the artist that you get it from, and it helps out the artist immensely. I mean, that's just an added revenue stream for them. So go there and check all that out. She's got some really cool tank tops for the ladies. And I say that because I don't know if my wife's listening, but she's big into tank tops. So,
awesome. I definitely would appreciate it. Thank you.
I didn't want you to think I was going to get one and try it on or anything. So. I don't look good in a racerback. I'm just telling you.
Oh, come on now. I bet you look all right. Come on.
Yeah, no. My tan stops right about here. I have that all, to
a farmer's tan.
Yeah.
Hey.
Right. Yeah. And as they say, you can order my legs from Colonel Sanders because they're all white meat. They are not cooked.
Hey, well, at least you tan. Some of us over here, it just doesn't happen. So,
hey, I feel your pain. I feel like I have something like from the bottom of my shorts down that just doesn't work. My wife got this nice little liquid tanning stuff, that you can put on. So.
There you go. It's the answer to all the problems. Yep.
She uses it a lot. Wink, wink.
Hey, who doesn't, right?
So, Ashley, it's been a blast talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on. I look forward to talking to you, hopefully again, and finding out some more, and maybe seeing you in Nashville soon.
That would be awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much again for taking the time. It's been awesome.
You're so welcome. Join me again on Thursday night. We've got more to come. Another episode of Before Nashville will be right there. Go check us out on all your socials, and also on your DSPs, and we'll have episodes up on there as well. So good night, everybody. We'll see you back on Thursday.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Before Nashville on all social media and listen wherever you get your podcast. Tune in again for another country star of tomorrow on Before Nashville with George Davis. I'm Kevin Casey on behalf of Worldwide Pants. Have a great night.